Hey guys, so imagine waking up in a serene, clutter-free home, knowing exactly where every dollar in your bank account is going and feeling an unprecedented sense of freedom. I mean, picture a life where financial stress is a thing of the past and you have time and resources to pursue your passions. Now, in today's episode, we're diving into the transformative world of minimalism and the surprising and life-changing benefits of spending less money. Now, today I'm excited to welcome Diane Boden to the podcast. Now, Diane is an expert on minimalism, and she is here to share her insights and tips on living a fulfilling life with less. Stay tuned. Hey guys, I'm Brett Nelson, founder of Debt Free Dad. I paid off about $45,000 of debt, have been debt free now for more than 11 years outside of my mortgage. I've also helped thousands of other people save and pay off tens of millions of dollars with the work that we do here at Debt Free Dad. Now, after listening to this episode, if you want to take this a step further and you'd like to get better results with your finances in as little as 30 to 60 days, I'll be sharing details on how you can do that coming up in today's episode. As I mentioned, I'm excited to welcome Diane to the show. Diane Boden is the voice behind the top-rated podcast, Minimalist Moms. Through her show, Diane shares her personal experiences and interviews inspiring guests who offer insights and tips on living a fulfilling life with less. Now, Diane's expertise and message have been sought out by various other podcasts, including The Spillover with Alex Clark, 1,000 Hours Outside, The Mom Hour, and of course, right here, the Debt Free Dad podcast. In addition to her successful podcast, Diane has also authored a book released in March of 2021. Her words and advice have impacted countless individuals and families looking to simplify their lives and find more meaning in the things that matter most. So, Diane, welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast. So glad that you are joining us today.
I'm so glad that we're finally able to make this work. I know that for two parents, sometimes it can be really difficult to nail a time down. So I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on your podcast not too long ago, and I actually felt better because you too have kids running around in the background just like I do most days. So it's good to know that I'm not the only one.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know how people get the quiet time away on the regular. For me, it's always a little bit chaotic over here.
Right. Yeah. Same thing. So you're here to talk about minimalism. And can you share first, as our listeners may or may not know what minimalism is, but can you explain what it is and how it differs, say, from just maybe simply being cheap or frugal or cost conscious?
Yes, I will say that I am slightly a frugal minimalist. So money does matter to me, and I am a cheapskate about something. So I will say being frugal is different from minimalism because I think you can be frugal and still have quite a few things in your home and hold on to the things. For me, minimalism is simply a tool to help you live a more organized life. And especially because I have 3 kids, my house is not going to be bare bones, sparse. I don't like a lot of things on my walls or a lot of knickknacks cluttering the space because for me, it just makes me maybe more anxious or just, it's not something I want to tend to with cleaning and whatnot. But really, I just try to aim for getting rid of what's superfluous in my life so I can really love the things that I own. So it's, for me, minimalism is also never a place that you fully arrive, again, especially with kids. It's more of, again, a tool that you use to live a more intentional lifestyle.
Yeah. So have you always lived this way, or was this something that you began doing after maybe having a lot of things and a lot of clutter, or what was your kind of history with this?
Yeah. So I will say in regards to frugality, I was someone that was quite the opposite in my late teenage, early 20s, I would say, which it's kind of weird because I cite this moment when I was 22, 23 years old, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's so young, but I just felt like I had lived a lot of life up until that point. I don't know why. I mean, I can explain why, but like I had lived a lot of life at that point. I was married at 22. And so the pinpoint moment that I can cite as the turning point for me was my husband and I were in my parents' basement and we were looking for something. And he said, look at all these things that are now in boxes that were once your dad's hard-earned working hours. And we never had a conversation from that point. It was just something to me that was an aha moment to where I said, pretty much when I turned 18 to 20, I got myself into so much credit card debt because I didn't fully understand what it meant to be loaned the money. It was just when I went to Macy's, they were like, oh, you can have a $200 credit limit. And I was like, $200 for free? Oh my gosh, like I could spend $200 today. Like it wasn't in my mind that eventually I would have to pay it back. For me, it just felt like current moment, impulsive. I'm just going to spend it now and I'll worry about that down the road, which ended up being probably quite a bit more with interest rates. But all that to say, that is kind of my thought process from 18 to 20. And then I met my husband and we had to be more, like we had to consider a budget because he was in his first year teaching. I was still in college. So it was that moment that made me realize like, oh my gosh, I have been working since I was 15. I don't really have a lot to show for it. I didn't really bring anything into this marriage except for debt. And I would rather not have a ton of things in my life that I've purchased. I would rather have experiences with my husband, our future kids, and with our family members. So it just kind of got the ball rolling a little bit differently, shifting where I wanted to put my attention. So hopefully that summarizes a little bit of it.
No, no, that's great. Actually, before we hit record, I told you I'm, in the process of moving. I'm finally out of the house that I was living in, and I
Mhm.
had only lived there about 3 years, but it's amazing. I didn't think I really had that much stuff until you move, right? I'm just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and I thought the same thing. I look at that, and that's even helped me become debt free. Is just looking at things differently. It's like, how many hours do I have to work or give up my time to have this thing, right? Or all of these things. And you're absolutely
Mhm.
right. You're in your parents' basement looking at all this stuff, and you're right. All that stuff represents, your time, and it represents your money. And then
Mhm.
what happens to a lot of it? It just sits, or you don't even
Mhm.
use it, or it just gets put into storage. You don't even know you have it anymore. Um,
Mhm.
it's crazy how we will spend so much time and so many of our years chasing after these things, but they're really pointless and meaningless at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I felt like again, we had such an idyllic childhood and I loved the things that we had growing up.
Yeah.
And so I would say at that point, it just also felt like with the minimalist element, why are you still holding on to these things? My sister and I haven't lived here for years. Why do you have all these things still in your basement? And it's like, oh, this is something mental to where you are having sentimental attachment to these things or you don't want to go without. So when I started like digging deeper to say like this is actually all about the mind and why we tend to hold on to things. And that could be for various reasons. It depends on who you talk to. But that was also a thing to yeah, I just didn't want to be cluttered full of various things. And again, I had nothing to show for it except for a closet full of clothes that still had some tags on it. Like I just had a bunch of
Yeah.
debt and that $200 that I got ended up being so much more. And you and I talked about this on my podcast, but just there needs to be, I mean, education reform is, we don't have a time, we don't have time to go into education reform,
Yeah.
but there should certainly be classes that teach you about economics in a much deeper way. And you and I were talking about social media and how social media knows exactly what it is that we want. And just to be able to combat that mentally, if we were more honest and rational with our students and with ourselves, we could see the reason that drives us behind why we want more and more. So sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but
No,
it is
no,
something I think about.
no, I completely agree. Money and money success, it goes deep. It's not just about, numbers and interest rates and things like that. It is such an emotional thing for most people. And
Yeah.
spending is definitely a big emotional thing for a lot of people. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We did talk about that. And I think it's so important not only to be talking about financial education in schools, but also how do we fight against, this type of marketing and all these types of things that they're
Yeah.
able to do to get us to buy stuff, and sometimes buy stuff with money we don't even have. It's fascinating to me, really. So can you share, from a financial standpoint, as you've gone
Yeah.
through and done this, how has it helped you and your family, do you feel, from a financial standpoint? Was there any major benefits, things that you were able to do differently? You mentioned, you wanted to have more experiences. How is life different financially now compared to, say, like when you were in your early 20s?
Yeah. So, like I said, my husband's always been really, I wish he were here next to me because he could give you all of his tips and tricks to your audience. But my husband's always been pretty disciplined and just kind of having that plan. Like he doesn't think in the moment, he definitely thinks way more long term than I do. So,
Yeah.
that's been a really good yin and yang balance that we have.
Yeah.
But all that to say, yeah, we do prioritize experiences over things. But one of the first things that we did that I felt was incredibly beneficial to us is because he was teaching, because I was in college, we took our honeymoon a year after we got married. And we spent about 3.5 weeks driving around the country. And I remember we'd been on the road for like a week and a half. when we got to California and we looked at each other and we're like, the money that we've spent right now would have been our plane tickets to go to Hawaii. So just kind of being, again, coming back to the word intentional, it's not that we don't spend money. It's just that we're a lot more intentional about what we want to be spending it on. And so like we packed out oatmeal from Costco on that trip. We weren't going out to breakfast every day. We were getting coffee from McDonald's and hot water to pour in our oatmeal. Like we were just super intentional about the experiences we want to have, because we're like, oh, we want to go out for drinks tonight, or we want to do this. So I would say, I know this does have a point. I do have a point. I would just say like, we are just so much more, again, without being redundant, intentional about what is it that we want to experience together and
Yeah.
with a family. And we go that way and in that direction. And so I would say one, also, I have a lot of time back. I know that's not financial, but to me, my time is money. And so
huge.
I'm able to go have experiences because I'm not constantly having to maintain my household. It's like a very easy home to tidy. And I feel like women especially get so bogged down in like, well, I have to clean my house or I have so much upkeep. And it's just, when you live with less, you don't have as much to clean up. So
Yeah.
sorry, I don't feel like I fully answered that, but the
No.
honeymoon thing is like a pinpoint thing for us too, that I just felt like moving forward, that's kind of just how we've continued to live our life.
Yeah. So in your experience, like you mentioned the word, being more intentional with how you spend your money and what you spend your money on. Can you talk a little bit about how you got to that point of what that means to you? Because I think so many people have a hard time kind of looking inward of what is it that I truly want and need in my life in order to make me happy or my family happy, and not be so distracted about what everybody else is doing. Because there has to be that separation, because if you follow what everybody else is doing, you're going to be left with a lot of stuff too, right? So
Yeah.
how do you break away from that? And how does someone, in your opinion, look in and find what does that intentionality mean to them personally?
So again, I'm probably speaking more to your female audience. And I would say for me, specifically when it came to clothes, and you could apply this to anything that you purchase, but I had to really look inward and say, where does my value lie? And is it because of the things that I own, the car that I drive, the purse that I carry? Because when I would look outward to the people that I admired and that I loved, it wasn't because of those things. I don't care what you drive. I don't care. It's, are you a good person? It's, what's our dynamic like? It truly had nothing to do with things. So then it makes the things a lot more superficial and meaningless. And then we need clothes to get to exist. Obviously, we need cars to get from here to there. I just finally bought a new car. I had been driving a 2007 and I bought a new car last year. And that felt good. And I kind of wanted to reward myself in that way, because I'm like, I had gone with this 2007 car for however many years. And I think it's nice to treat yourself occasionally, but I think that that's not where, no one cares what my car is at this point. So I think truly being honest with yourself and what value you bring into the world you're existing in, it's sometimes that can be hard to do. And sometimes you may have to make some changes, but that was a big thing for me as well, to say like, I don't need all the newest trends. And honestly, for women too, like trends are like constantly evolving. And so if you can just kind of like stay in the straight and narrow classic, like you're always going to be on trend, because who can keep up with all the various trends that marketers are trying to sell us anyways?
Yeah, like the Stanley Cups, right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh
the
yeah. Did
latest
we talk about
trend.
that?
I think we did.
We did. We
Although
talked about that.
it is settling down a little bit, but yeah, that was quite the rage for a little while,
Yeah, you just simply can't keep up with everything that I don't remember the exact statistic, but just Target used to have a few floor plans a year. And now they have one like every single week. They're constantly adding things. So if you're someone that is regularly going to Target, you are going to feel less than, because you're like, oh, that's so cute. Oh, I wish I had that. Oh, my friend has that. Oh, I wish that I wish I made enough money. I don't know. Like, I just don't want to do that. And so honestly, like I kind of just stay out of stores. And that was one thing that helped me when I started making the changes. Like I don't want to use that. Well, I'll use it. It felt like an alcoholic in a bar. Like I truly just had to stay away, because it felt way too, I was too impulsive. I truly could not go to the store without feeling that hold over me. And now I'm a lot better, obviously, because I know what game the marketers are trying to play and make me feel. But at that initial beginning period, I couldn't go to the mall, and I just stayed away.
Yeah. I like that you use that less than term, because I think I think being aware of how marketers are using that, using their advertising, using the words, and sometimes you can feel like you're not good enough or you don't have what's good enough. You need something new all the time. And sometimes just being aware that that's what a marketer's job is to do. It's meant to distract you from your path and get you to buy stuff that you don't necessarily need or you probably don't even want, but you feel like you need it or want it in that moment because of how they market it to you. So it's interesting that you said I'm more intentional, or I guess more aware of them trying to use those tactics against you. And some people don't even realize that. I think sometimes that they want you to feel like what you have isn't good enough or what your neighbor or other person has, and that's what you should be having, right? They do that in car commercials, all sorts of things, right?
Well, and if you can just bring it to the prefrontal cortex, not the lizard brain that we're just like existing in on the regular, but if you can bring it to the forefront of your mind, pull back and truly, like, as you walk into a store and say to yourself, like, I know what they're trying to do and I am not going to follow along, because truly, honestly, I struggled with like eating issues for a while. And when I realized like I could eat every single thing in my home and it would not be enough to satisfy me, because it's not food that is what I want. That's not what's going to fulfill me in this moment. It's sleep, it's emotional. I'm sad. I need a friend. It's whatever, fill in the blank, but that's not the need being met by this food. So when you go into a store and feel that, that void or that hole, it likely isn't a thing that's going to fill it, because that's also the other thing. If you are feeling like, sorry, I know we're talking about clothes, but if you're feeling, like clothing or shopping has a hold over you, I also like to think about, what am I going to feel like the moment that comes to my door? Okay, it's going to be amazing as I open the door and there's my Amazon package and I open it and it feels great. And then I feel great holding it. And then maybe I'll wear it or use it for the first time. And then it's not new and shiny anymore. And it's like, okay, I need something else. So if you can bring it to the prefrontal cortex and be aware of those moments when you're feeling impulsive, that has also helped me make better decisions in the moment.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that we talk a lot about in our membership is just, opportunity costs too. It's having that mindfulness of, okay, if I say yes to this, when you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else too.
Yes.
So if you're over consuming or emotional spending, or you find that you're getting trapped with those, those marketers and you feel like you need to buy, it's just taking that extra second, being like, okay, if I do this, this means that what I really wanted over here, I can't have it, or I have to wait longer. And sometimes just having that thought can stop you from spending a lot of extra money too.
Yeah, no, and it's hard to get yourself into those habits. I think whenever I'm feeling stressed out, I notice I still have that tendency. And I think that's why it's important to give yourself those boundaries and limits to say, okay, I like this thing. I'm going to wait and put a 2-week hold on it. And if I still want it in 2 weeks, maybe I'll still like it. But again, I think that this is also another thing with women specifically. If we're like late night scrolling,
Oh yeah.
I think we might not even notice. We may not notice because it's not a huge detriment to our bank account, but like over time that does. You told me it was death by 1,000 cuts. Like these little things will add up, even if it's not a huge amount, but like you could have that in your savings, or like for a beach house one day, but it's like, no, I just needed this new t-shirt. And it's like, no one cares about your t-shirt. They liked your old t-shirt. And I don't know. I think if we can just be honest with ourselves, that's the biggest thing that can move the needle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's that whole saying of, it's only a few dollars, right? But it's only a few dollars has probably cost you thousands of dollars over the years, if you look at the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. So what would you say, Diane, to someone who is, they're surrounded by a lot of clutter, they're feeling stressed, but it's so overwhelming, they don't know where to start. How do I even begin going through my closets and my basement or my attic or the stuff that's in the garage or my kids' toys? Like, how do you coach someone through that process that is wanting to do it, but, they're just stressed, and sometimes they're, like they're deer in headlights. They can't take action and make that step forward.
Yeah. I would say, I always say 2 places are a great starting point. The bathroom, because you don't have as many sentimental attachments in there. And so I say, look at your bathroom, pull everything out. You don't need things on your countertops, even take down wall art. Literally just have a bathroom that exists, because you usually start your day there and you end your day there as well.
Yeah.
So it's giving you those negative emotions at times that you don't really need to be in that headspace. So if you can pull everything out, see what you can live with without 30 days, and then slowly add back in the things that you use and need, that's great. So that is one place that I think is just kind of an easy win, build that momentum. The other space that is usually, especially if you have kids, is a great place to start is the entryway of your home. Again, you're leaving your home from that point of view, and then you're coming home and it's like, oh, I have to address this chaos, but I don't have time. So I think getting that to where it's like a well-oiled machine up there, or if in your mudroom, that's another great place to start. Typically not a lot of sentimental items there. And just set up the systems that work best for you. I heard someone say, for the summer, they have a pool bag and then they attach an index card, or an index card with the things that they'll need for their pool bag, and they just attach it to it. And then some of the stuff stays in there, or sometimes they can just like look and assess, oh, I need to put that in the pool bag. So just, that's a system that seems like hard work at first, but then it just becomes habit. And again, that's what we're trying to set ourselves up with, is just better habits and replacing bad ones with better ones. So those are two places. And then just a little bit of self-promotion, which you can get my book at the library, but my book is definitely more for beginners, of just starting points of, hey, this is your mind, your schedule, the things, the relationships you have in your life. So I feel like, again, shameless plug, that could be a good starting point, because we definitely don't have time to just like go into all the things that are worthwhile in big life change. Like little things can be big game changers.
Yeah. And what's the name of your book?
Oh, it's just Minimalist Moms Living and Parenting with Simplicity. But it's all about mantras. So like, I like to live quality over quantity. So if I'm going to make a purchase, I'd rather have a nice thing versus many not as high quality things that are going to deteriorate in a shorter period of time. So that's something that I try and live by. And even if I'm really big on wool sweaters here in Ohio, I will usually buy them secondhand. And so it's not as much of a cost up front, but it's like wool sweaters will last forever versus the one at Target that I'm going to have to replace year after year. And then that adds up to that wool sweater. So if you can just think in that mindset, or the 1 minute rule. If I can do something in 1 minute or less, give or take, I'm going to do it now. So for me, a quick example is the dishes. So if you can just rinse off your dish and put it into the dishwasher right then and there, that's going to save you time at the end of the day when you're tired and you want to relax. And so these little things, that hanging up your coat, putting your shoes back, just things that you can get done, just start getting in the habit of doing those things. And then there was one more I was going to share, and I can't think of what it is. But just little mantras is what my book is full of just ways that you can. Again, I think we're looking at, and you probably talk about this too. Dave Ramsey talks about the debt snowball and how you slowly like build the momentum. I think it's the same with minimalism. As you start to get these little wins under your belt, you just have that confidence to say like, I can do this and I can make the change. And it doesn't have to be big. It can just be these little habit changes that move the needle.
Well, and it's such a win-win, I mean, you declutter your life, you feel less stress there. You also learn to be more mindful with your spending. So you have less spending, less wasteful spending. You got more money to, whether it's to build your emergency fund or pay down more debt, or like you said, go have some different experiences. I mean, right now, one of the number one stress factors in the United States is money and personal finance, so if you can, I mean, someone can embrace minimalism without actually saying, I'm a minimalist. Like there's a lot of cool things that are part of this whole movement that you can take and implement in your life without actually truly calling yourself that too, right?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing that I think sometimes I'm like, why did I call it Minimalist Moms? Because it's not, yes, not everyone wants to be a minimalist, and I understand that, but it truly is just, like I said, intention and living with less. And I always say, think more and do with less. So you don't have to be a minimalist in order to put these, again, systems into place to make your life run more smoothly. And I think that we definitely need those systems, especially if we have young kids. The more children you have, I think that the more systems you need in place to help your life not feel unmanageable. And I think some people like the structure, but there's something to be said about a bit of structure here and there.
Yeah. Well, I want to just thank you for coming on and talking to our audience about this. I think, like I said, there's a lot of concepts and a lot of things that really go hand in hand with your personal finances if you're able to embrace some of these ideas. And I think the work that you're doing is absolutely fantastic. And where you mentioned your book, but where else can people? I know you have a podcast, you have a website. Like, where else can people find more information about you?
Yeah, the Minimalist Moms podcast, I release every Tuesday, sometimes on Friday as well, the book, and then at Minimalist Moms podcast on Instagram. You can shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help with like personal questions, because I really do think that this has changed my life for the better. And I loved your episode on my show that you gave my listeners so much advice as well. So it's been really great, like connecting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Dan. And we'll send our listeners right over there. We'll put all the links in the show notes for them.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting again.
Yep, absolutely.
Go. So as always, guys, congratulations on all of you guys who are taking a stand for your financial life, and you're wanting better in your life. We get that, getting out of debt isn't easy, but with our help and with your consistency and discipline, we promise you this is going to be some of the best work that you guys do. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.